Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Collision Podcast. My name is Bobby Peacock, and today with me I have our other hosts.
I'm Kat Jellin.
Yeah, and today we got a really cool and exciting episode. We have our first ever guest, but before we introduce our guest, Kat, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so we're going to introduce our president-founder, John Glasser, and he's going to tell the story of Collision's origin, which is a fantastic, amazing story. He's also going to tell us the story of a vision he had while lying very sick in a hospital in January of 2021, a vision that changed everything for Collision.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about where we're headed in the future.
So, without further ado, welcome to the podcast, John Glasser. How's it going, my dog?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, welcome,
Thanks, Bobby.
man.
Thanks, Kat.
You are our first guest on the podcast,
Wow.
so
Honored.
Very special.
yeah. So, being the first guest, can you tell us just give us like the 2-minute version of like who you are, and how long you've been in ministry?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I am John Glasser, president, founder of Collision. Married to Angie, the better half. She also works for Collision. It's my wife of 27 years.
Wow.
Nice.
We got married as really young. We were, really young. And we have 3 beautiful children, Isaac, Eli, and Jerica. We've had many kids live with us in our house as well over the years. And I would say I'm a beloved son of God.
Amen.
First, and then married to an incredible person that makes me better. And our children have been such a blessing. So yeah, we're a family, but also a family that's on mission together.
Come on now.
So your role with Collision is what, and what does that look like day to day?
Yeah, great question, Kat. So yeah, I am the president and founder at Collision. What that means is really like primarily driving the vision forward and helping to motivate and encourage all of our staff and all of the churches that we're partnering with. And then down that level, they're encouraging their students to be on mission. Ultimately, the hero of our story is the student.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to empower students to share the gospel and multiply disciples. So my role is to carry that vision forward, which means that I get to engage a lot of different people on the daily, from donors to church leaders to youth pastors, to parents, to students, to staff. And really most of what I do every day when I wake up is strategy and strategic thinking and thinking scaling. How do we get to where God wants us to be and get there more efficiently and more effectively and do it in the most God-honoring way?
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
we love
good.
John. He's awesome. He's always on the go, but he's always available to all of us. So,
Love you too.
Yeah.
so tell us the origin story of Collision.
Yeah. I'll try to be brief on this because it can get long.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us the good stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the good stuff. I think coming out of, I was in ministry already, working for an organization, and had just, my own stuff I was dealing with at that time, my own pride, but also, a couple of experiences that led me to go, maybe I don't want to be in ministry anymore.
Mm.
And want to go back into business. I had a business degree as an undergrad. I got an MBA, and I loved the business world. But God had a calling on my life, and you can't run away from a calling.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was when, in the midst of that kind of self-generated turmoil and organizational changes that the organizations that I was working for and some harder circumstances, that's when I met Bethany. I had helped her older brother, Daniel, and her older sister, Naomi, do campus ministry. And she knew that. So she reached out to me. I was not really in the mood to be like, yes, I want to continue doing ministry.
Mm.
I was ready to bounce. So it was really God's grace that I'm here. And despite my low faith and despite my reluctant leadership, I did say yes and helped her, recruited some other staff to start helping her she had great faith to transform her school and to see outcomes. She wanted less violence. She wanted people to stop killing themselves. She wanted to see kind of the sexual promiscuity be eradicated and like holiness to be what marked her school. So it was really her faith. And then now the faith of other students that were joining her and uniting together to do something extraordinary. That's what drew my heart in, because you can't run away from a calling. And like when God burdens your heart for something and it's really a burden from him, he's the one that's going to provide the pathway to do it. And he did. So our origin story really started from a student that captured my heart. And from that then came an empowering of this student, an empowering of their team, an empowering of staff that came around that team. And then it was her feeling that empowerment, that unity with other students, the unity of the body that then led her to like, all right, I'm going to have courage to talk to the principal, to ask for some crazy ideas that have never been done before. Thus the inception, the birth of Collision Cafe, feeding a bunch of students in a cafeteria. I mean, I hadn't thought of that idea. That it was an incredible idea. And there were others that helped Bethany lay out those ideas and help them come to fruition. So I do want to give credit to, there was a guy named Ryan on staff with us at the time. There was a guy named Grant, and they really had a huge hand to play in the formation of those ideas with Bethany.
Right. The vision and
everything, writing out the vision. The vision statement really began, and I remember a whiteboard down in the basement of the underground House of Prayer, which used to be also a coffee shop.
That's here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, for those that are watching nationally. And yeah, they were writing it out, and Grant really had the verbalization to help Bethany write out, we want to glorify God by helping to unite and mobilize the local church in order to fulfill the Great Commission. And Ryan was giving his input, and Bethany was giving her input. And that's still our vision today. Like it's lasted. So you have to know that's from God. When something lasts and it's effective and it's fruitful. And I'd like to say this, like, despite me, God has grown this and he's been faithful. And I think if we continue to give him glory, like the origin story will continue to grow and continue to give him glory. Missions exist because worship doesn't. And Bethany was a worshiper. She was a prayer warrior. She still is. And that was one of the visions that we had for Lincoln High School, was we want to see just an automatic response of God transforming somebody's heart to be worship. We want to see worship break out at Lincoln. Collision Cafe was a representation of worship. God is good. That's how it originated. So stuck deep in our DNA is student empowerment and student leadership. Believing in the gold that God has planted in somebody and then calling it out.
That's good. How many years ago? I can't speak today. How many years ago was that?
This coming November, 2025, will be 17 years.
Wow.
Okay, so we're in the founded in
2008. So October, November-ish. Can't remember exactly, but that time frame, 2008.
And then can you give us a little bit more of a picture or timeline of those early years, what Collision looked like and how it progressed throughout the years until about COVID? And then we'll ask you some more questions.
Yeah, for sure. When we started, like I said, recruited Ryan and Grant, and there were other staff that then started to help the students. And they had great ideas that we started to empower. So one of those ideas was Collision Cafe. So every Friday morning at Lincoln High School, we would go and set up with the students huge curtains that would block off a piece of the cafeteria at Lincoln High School. And the students would come and they would get bagels and donuts and bananas and hot chocolate and coffee. And we would have students serving, and we would be basically helping them orchestrate this mass feeding. We'd have, 300, 400, 500 kids every Friday morning.
That's crazy.
The feeding
for
of the
years.
500.
The feeding of the 500.
For real.
And then it multiplied. The loaves multiplied.
Come on.
From that, we started to meet. So Sioux Falls is a refugee center for a lot of refugees around the world. And a lot of those kids that came from the very first one were from Ghana and Ivory Coast and Liberia and Ethiopia and Eritrea and Somalia. And then we started to meet kids from Nepal. Like a lot of the refugee kids that were at Lincoln would take advantage of the free breakfast.
Yeah.
There wasn't free breakfast at that time being served by the school district.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
So God was helping to meet a need that they actually had, which then opened a door to their hearts. And those students that were part of the Collision team would go and pray with the other students and find out needs and build a relationship and share the gospel. It was very powerful to just watch and observe it and be a part of it. And then we discovered, when we started to meet that one need, we discovered another need. These refugee students loved playing futsal and soccer. What they call football everywhere else. We call soccer.
Yep.
And they were asking the question like, hey, can you help us in the very cold winters in South Dakota to play somewhere because we don't get access to play? And so what we did is, in those early days, we would invite churches to be a part of what we were doing, youth pastors specifically. So we had a youth pastor from Life Church, Dave Sinkgraven, who's now a pastor. He came and was serving with us, discovered that need to play soccer, and helped me start a soccer outreach at a local church in their gymnasium.
Wow.
And that was amazing to start to meet that need. What started with 30 students grew to about 300 students rapidly. And then we partnered with Sanford Fieldhouse and asked for time from them. And anyway, my point being, like, when you start to mobilize students and empower them, and you actually get into their world, you will discover, by the grace of God, needs that they have outside of whatever outreach that you're doing, if you take time to listen. And so we were listening to the school leaders as well. Hey, what needs do you have at the school? We were asking some good questions that then led to opportunities to engage more people groups and more students. So from its inception, what happened is, because of consistency and faithfulness, availability, the principal took notice, and her heart started to transform. There was some very specific circumstances that God allowed us to be a part of in her walk with Him that then opened her heart to trust us. And then her, which I didn't know at the time, I had no idea, but she had trained every principal in Sioux Falls through her school. And she was what looked like from the outside looking in was very much her trepidation of who we were and what we represented. And are we doing it legally? And are we doing it the right way? And when we honored those things and honored her, God used us in her life. And then she started opening more doors. So it's like, hey, I trained this person over at this school. Let me make a contact. This is behind the scenes. I didn't know what was happening. And then students started to be interested at this other school, and this other school, and this other school. So what it really looked like on a weekly basis as Collision grew was the same format that happened at its inception. So we had cafes, we had soccer, we had different meeting of needs of different people groups at the school. So, for example, we learned from the counselors and the school leaders, the Native American population, which is big in South Dakota and in Sioux Falls, desperately needed love and attention. They just have a lot of brokenness in their homes. And so they had asked us, hey, is there anything that you could provide on a weekly basis for our Native American population? They don't have access, especially in the cold, to basketball. They love that. And they love community. Can you help provide that? So that was an amazing opportunity. We partnered with Linwood Wesleyan. We would pick up those students from Lincoln, drive them every week to Linwood Wesleyan to play basketball, hang out with them, try to get their church leaders engaged. And then we would drive them all home. And then we started to discover needs in their home lives that were so broken. So the continuum happens if you take a listen to people and what they need. So engage with the schools. That's what we learned, is if there's no engagement in the community, no engagement with the schools, if you're not asking the right questions, if you just have an agenda that you want to get accomplished, and you don't take the time to listen, you're going to miss opportunities that God is like, here you go. You want to get to this mission, but I'm providing you the opportunities. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Collision has taken on many forms throughout the years, especially those early ones as you guys were seeking to meet needs and ask questions and build relationships.
Yep.
But you had some common denominators of being student-led and students engaging their peers in gospel conversations. And so doors were opening to other schools within Sioux Falls. And eventually, what did Collision grow to in Sioux Falls?
We ended up in 23 schools.
23 middle and high schools, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Middle and high
in the
schools.
surrounding areas as well.
And
Wild.
our mission, the 3 words of our mission during that time was unite, empower, serve.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we were staying faithful to what we believed. Like, okay, this is who God has like put the DNA inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
So bring together the believing students
Mm-hmm.
and then empower them, listen to their dreams, give them the resources and the training and the coaching and the love, attention, still needs to be student-led.
Yep.
And then we're going to look to serve.
Yeah.
So that serving piece is where we started to discover needs that we didn't realize in the beginning.
Right.
But yeah, it grew to 23 schools.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So that was all before, 2019/2020, and then COVID hit, which took us for another ride, where
We had to adapt.
schools were shutting down, and we couldn't have access to the schools, and we had to rely heavily on technology, on Zoom calls, and still interacting with students. But then what happened to you during that time? Because you ended up, not going to say it all, but you ended up in the hospital. So walk me through what happened, and the Lord gave you some words.
Yeah, he did. So I'm going to back up and do a prequel to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So back in 2018, we really shifted gears from Unite, Empower, Serve to Multiply Disciples.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We had a trainer come in, a missionary that really grew church planting movements across the globe that touched millions and millions of lives. And we started to incorporate that DNA mix, which is just simply training to get to multiplication of disciples before 2021 and what happened with me in the hospital. So that really shifted our heart to not only just all right, we want to unite students and empower them. We really want to get to generational discipleship. So that was a huge DNA shift in 2018.
Yep.
So 2019, we're still implementing that, still seeing God move. 2020 hits, COVID hits, kind of messes with everybody's realm around the globe, especially here in America, messed with youth ministry, can't meet in the schools anymore, can't do food anymore. And I think we had to really take a look at all right, what are we doing? How are we going to do this? And then January 15th hits with me, 2021. I had COVID end of December 2020.
Right.
Lasted all the way through January 15th, 2021. So it was pretty bad. I ended up at my house having some really bad chest pains, which at first I thought was oh, maybe I'm getting a kidney stone or something. And my right leg hurt really bad as well. Every time I walked, there was massive pain in my right calf.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then one night, I remember before finally going to the hospital, again, stubbornness is just a repeated pattern. Need to get rid of that somehow.
Yeah.
But
Sanctification.
I don't like the hospital. So
I'm with you on
like
that
the
one.
hospital?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm not a big fan of hospitals.
You like to go to the dentist? I don't.
Yeah.
I don't like to go to the
I
hospital.
like the
Yeah.
dentist.
You do? Wow. Cat. That's amazing. Just surprise me every day.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm at home thinking, this, I'm going to kick this thing. This is easy. I got this. And that night, everybody's in separate rooms. We're trying to quarantine everybody off. Everybody sleeps with noisemakers. That's the Glasser household. So if you don't sleep with the noisemaker, I'm sorry, you're missing out. But anyway, in this situation, I'm laying up in bed. So I'm here. This is my posture in bed. This is the only way I could sleep.
Yeah.
Because I was in so much pain.
Yep.
And then it felt like somebody was taking a knife and stabbing my chest. And so
Not good.
Not good.
Yeah.
When the stab came and then it released, I would scream as loud as I could because it was that painful. So if anybody has ever had a pulmonary embolism, I understand the pain level, and it is not good. So woke up that morning. I still thought I had kidney stones.
Yeah. Kidney stones in your heart.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, no,
Somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Stubborn men.
yeah, for sure.
So my mom was the one that convinced me to go into the hospital finally.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
So
Good
I'm
mom.
sorry, Angie. That's my wife.
Yeah.
I did not listen to her. Finally listen to my mom.
Yeah.
So moms out there, you got a great influence on your kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So went to the hospital, did the whole COVID test, had COVID, of course. And then they put me into a waiting room, and I had to wait there for 5 hours before anybody saw me.
Yeah.
And then when they saw me, they moved me up to the COVID floor, which is kind of like, hey, this is where people go to die. I didn't know that.
Wow.
So I'm in a hospital room, hearing another girl right in the next hospital room scream, like a bloody murder scream. So that freaks me out because it's happening all night long.
Yeah.
I'm still in incredible pain. Nobody's done anything except for like give me some Tylenol and, to control the fever or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, before I knew I was going to be okay, this is when my encounter happened. So 6:30 a.m. in the morning, January 15th,
Yep.
I'm curled up in a fetal position. I'm just crying out to Jesus, like, Jesus, I need you right now.
Yep.
Like, I do not know if I'm going to make it out of this place.
Yeah.
I need you right now. And I didn't know 70% oxygen was bad. I didn't know all these medical things.
Yeah.
Like,
Probably for the best, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
real.
thank
Yeah.
God I didn't know. And thank God I didn't go on a ventilator. I think that would have taken me out.
Yeah.
So 6:30 a.m. in the morning, I just feel the presence of God. God's everywhere.
Yep.
There's no place where he's not.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
sometimes he chooses to manifest himself in a tangible way that our senses start to pick up and perceive.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what happened.
Yeah.
I felt Jesus walk into my hospital room.
Yeah.
I didn't see him. There wasn't any I couldn't physically see him, but I could feel his presence so strong.
Yeah.
And then the tears came, which I'm not, and you can ask my wife, I don't cry. I'm not a crier.
Yeah.
That was a unique experience. And then we just had this internal dialogue through our minds, which was really strange as well. I started to ask him questions. My first question was like, am I going to make it? Or are you taking me home?
Wow.
But the feeling of his presence in that moment, for those that have come close to death and you're a believer, it felt like there's a song somewhere, I think, talks about honey from heaven. Like that's what it felt like, is this honey hitting your head and penetrating your whole body and your spirit.
Yeah.
And I was ready. I was like, this is actually better than life. So
Take me home.
if I'm ready to go, let's go.
Absolutely.
And then in the internal dialogue, he's like, nope, you're going to be okay. You're going to make it. I was like, bummer. No,
Okay.
if I have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I again, it was this unique experience. So my next question to him, internal in my brain, was, okay, God, how do you want me to spend the rest of my days?
Yeah.
And that's when I saw, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a DVD player for those of us that are old school.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
VHS, DVD,
For you newbies, it's like your iPad or, whatever, shows up in front of you.
Yeah.
And I saw America, and I saw horses all over the place with riders on them.
Yeah.
Not all over the place, sorry. In the middle of our country.
Yep.
I saw them from North Dakota, Montana, all the way over through Minnesota.
Yep.
On down through the country, and they were holding torches, which I knew some of the some of the imagery.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
And so I saw it. I was like, okay, I understand what that means.
Yeah.
And then Jesus said to me, internal in my brain, have them ride east. And I was like, okay, I don't understand that. And he didn't explain it. And then he was gone.
Wow.
That was the end of the experience.
Yeah.
So later
crazy.
on, I found out some things about East, which is really amazing. So the Garden of Eden was planted in the East, which is pretty cool. The Star of Bethlehem, which led the wise men to Jesus, appeared in the East. what I discovered even in the last 6 months is that riding east, it's a new mission, it's a new revelation. It really signifies new vision.
Yeah.
And like that's what God has done. So it was very significant. When I got out of the hospital, I met with people that had come near-death experiences.
Yeah.
And we got to share and like cry over things. Now, when I go to movies, I don't like watching true stories.
Yeah.
Because just the tears start flowing. You can ask my wife about it. Yeah. So it marked me. It was kind of a new birth in some ways.
Yeah.
Of like, all right, I don't have as much control over anything.
Yep.
Even my own breath or my own life.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to stop holding on to things so tightly and like, God, whatever you want to do with my life, like, here
It's
you
yours.
go.
Yeah.
You got my day marked when I'm going to see you.
Yep.
So really everything else is pretty trivial.
So at that point, did you start to get better? And then what did you do with that knowledge and that vision from there?
So right after that, I think probably a few hours after that, they put me through an ultrasound.
Okay.
Which I don't even know what that really is anymore. But like they sounded my body and they discovered a blood clot in my calf.
Okay.
And they discovered a blood clot in my lung.
Okay.
And they discovered a blood clot heading to my brain.
Wow.
Whoa.
I did not know those details.
Yeah. So
I knew about the leg, but I didn't know about the heart.
Yep.
That's crazy.
So it's in the lung. The pulmonary embolism is in the lung. That's why it's so painful.
Yeah.
But this little like short doctor came in and very, very brilliant. She's like, Mr. Glasser, you're lucky to be alive.
Wow.
Like what you have kills one of two people.
Wow.
Wow. So God's hands,
His grace.
His presence were all over you in this moment.
I can tell I'm not afraid to die.
Yeah.
Not afraid to die.
Yeah.
Death for the believer is better than life.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I'm here and I'm doing what God showed me to do.
Yeah.
So they were able to put you on something that dissolved those blood clots.
Good question, Kat. You're such a good interviewer.
I'm just curious
Wow,
what
she's
happens
killing
from
it.
here, genuinely.
Yeah, no. So yeah, she after she recognized those things, she's like, "Hey, we're going to give you the strongest blood thinner that we have." I can't remember the name of it. Starts with an X or something. But they put me on that, and immediately my oxygen levels went from like 70 to 80 to 90 to.
Okay.
So within like a day, I was out.
Wow.
They're like, "Oh,
Praise the
we
Lord.
found the issue," and I don't know why COVID did that in certain people, like caused blood clots, but it did, and
Yeah.
Wow.
So you were a free man back out in the wild,
yes.
but you still had this vision. Did you know where to go from there? And what did you do with it?
There was two components to it. So the vision was a piece to it. And then a friend of mine, a supporter, Denny, had COVID the same time that I had COVID.
Right.
Praying for his, getting better. He ended up passing away.
Right.
Yep.
A few days later than I got out of the hospital. So there was two things that God was trying to communicate to me that I clearly understood. Like,
Okay.
all right, Lord, you've been telling me to do this, and I've been telling you no for a long time. Not ready, not enough resources, too risky. It's too costly.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. And so disobedience is, it's like witchcraft. That's what the Bible says. Like rebellion is like witchcraft. And anyway, not that I would label myself as like, man, I'm really rebellious towards God. But he was trying to do something and trying to communicate things to me for years where I wasn't listening because of fear.
Okay.
Fear of failure. Fear of it costs too much.
Right.
And anyway, these were the messages that I think God like finally took a 2x4, a collision to my head. And went, all right, are you ready to listen?
Yeah.
Because up until that moment, you had only had a vision for Sioux Falls, the surrounding area, the Sioux Empire, which was 24,000 students.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You were like committed to those 24,000 students.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was the vision. Yep.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, we are out of time. And we do have one more question left, but I think we're going to leave that for the next episode.
Part 2. What
Part
happened
2.
after that?
Yeah. So so we're just gonna go ahead and conclude that. Thank you so much, John, for being our first guest and being on this episode.
Welcome.
We're gonna get right into the next episode right after this. So
Sweet.
yeah.
You get to hear the rest of that story.
Rest of the story,
where
folks.
we're
Yeah.
at now.
Yeah.
And the why behind who we are and what we do.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for tuning in to Collision Podcast. You guys can follow us on all the socials, wherever you listen to podcasts, and we look forward to seeing you next time. All right, peace, love, blessings. We are out.